let's start with the freshest topic, which is a 2-week ceasefire between Iran, Israel, and the United States. And you just told me how you have witnessed most of the interceptions, the drone attacks.
Yes.
So
Yes.
have I and most people. It must feel different now for the skies to be calm.
Exactly. It's kind of a break for the region to breathe a bit. Yeah. After 40 days, I believe, the 2-week ceasefire comes because the people are very tired of what's happening. Like me, as you said, you, as similar like to everybody in Erbil and the wider region. The problem was that we are not part of the war, neither Gulf, none of us. It's a war between US, Iran, and Israel, but somehow we are in the middle of it. And throughout all this, it's like the attacks was on Kurdistan region, Erbil, Suleimania, Duhok sometimes. It was by the groups that is affiliated to Iran. And at the end of the day, these groups, after this 40 days, to be honest, I have to be honest with you, they are more powerful than the Iraqi government.
Yeah.
Because let's go back to the first day. So since the first day, these groups have been attacking every day. Like not only in Iraq, they have been attacking Jordan, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, as they claim. Syria as well, yes, exactly. The Iraqi government did not do anything, nor like they just had statements. So after 40 days, and I believe Iraq was in a state of completely paralyzed. Like the government was not weak, was actually absent.
During this war?
Of course, it was completely absent. Iraq was being run by a bunch of groups that is working like under the commander, like the commander of the IRGC. But this is the main problem Iraq has after the 2011 of the US withdrawal. It was like the Obama, like I personally was, and I still am a very big critic of how Obama actually withdrew its forces. So this is the vacuum that Obama created and Iran actually got advantage of. And right now we are dealing with a group, even though Kurds have a very good relations with Iran, like on the leadership level, but we are getting hit. Why we're getting hit? It's like because of US. It's not US.
That's what I was going to say. What makes it strange is that the Kurdistan region came under attack, of course, from Iran, but mostly from inside Iraq itself. That's very strange. And people used to write on social media, it's very strange that Iraq is attacking Iraq itself.
Exactly. So Iraq is attacking itself. Iran was attacking Iraq.
Yeah.
And we all know that they attacked a Peshmerga unit and 6 Peshmerga killed. And at the same time, US is attacking Iraq.
Yes.
And so where is the government here? There's no government. The government is actually absent. It's now weak. And I have read a lot of articles recently about the government should do something about them. To be honest, since 2024, it was December, I think, Antony Blinken, former foreign minister, like former secretary of state of US, came to Baghdad. Like it was post-Assad fall in Syria. And he was like, we want Sudani to disarm the militia. That moment, I was like, absolutely impossible for not even Sudani, any other man in Baghdad to disarm these groups.
Do you think the solution is for the Iraqi government and the Iraqi state to combine the militia groups with the army? Because budget-wise, it's very costly for Iraq. Now, we know there are multiple armed forces plus these militia groups. And if it's impossible to disarm them and dissolve them, why not make them part of the army so that you have, in the next 10, 20 years, weeding them out, making them professional?
I agree with that, but there's a problem. Like, so US did de-Baathification back in the days, and that was catastrophic. That was very big mistake by US.
Yeah.
Right now, they don't want to do the same. They don't want, because there was a proposal to Baghdad that they actually integrate into the Iraqi army. But we are talking about a lot of groups already, part of of official military belongs to the state, which is the Popular Mobilization Forces. What happens inside the Popular Mobilization Forces is going to happen the same inside the Iraqi forces. You cannot just having people, they are actually listening to Tehran more than Baghdad, and you just combine them with the Iraqi forces.
That's true. It's difficult because they come with their own agendas, they
course.
come with their own loyalty, but it might be better than just having them on the side.
Of course. Like if you have no other option, the best thing, and you cannot just tell them like you actually fight them and you kill them all, but the best way is to integrate into the Iraqi army. But there should be some kind of study, some kind of very good and well-educated process, because at the end of the day, you need to, like a lot of fighters within these Iranian-backed militia in Iraq, they are ideologically actually fighting for Iran. It's not like because of one person of the Irish. No, it's because they believe that it's a duty that they have to do it because of their ideology. So I completely agree. The best solution is to integrate into Iraqi forces.
Yeah, and the problem with these militia groups, that's why Iraq itself is not officially part of the war, but they have dragged Iraq into the war because they have nothing to lose. That's the danger of militia groups. For example, the Kurdistan region is worried about what we have built in the last 35 years. Roads, buildings, schools. Basically, we've had 3 decades of relative peace and stability. So when you have something to lose, you are very cautious about joining wars, alliances, taking steps. With militia groups, they have nothing to lose. They fire rockets and drones right and left.
Exactly, I agree with that. So you have like what happened with the Kurds during even Iranians, like a war between the US and Iran. You remember that there was a lot of talk from Washington saying, oh, the Kurds, like Iranian opposition forces of the Kurds, they can push. Immediately, the leadership in Kurdistan region, they actually prevented anyone to cross. This is a quite, and to be honest, I was impressed that we didn't let this happen. Like as a Kurdistan region, we didn't let this happen. But at the same time, we got a lot of rockets instead. As you said, like I agree, it's for them this is a business. For the Iranian-backed militia, this is for the leadership. This is a business, completely business. It's not about they do. There is fighters that they do it for their belief, their ideology, and I personally believe that it's a very powerful ideology. But the leadership, the structure of the leadership, it's all business. And why I'm saying this, let's look at PMF, like the Popular Mobilization Forces. It was first created to fight ISIS by a fatwa from Ayatollah Sistani. And then what happened after that, it was the change, the transformation of PMF from being a body, like a organization of military, it became now an organization of funding. Because annually, Iraqi state is actually funding PMF with 3.8, I believe, something, I don't want to say it in a wrong way, 3-point-something billion dollars annually. And a lot of units who are actually belongs to the Iranian-backed militia, actually all of them.
Are paid?
Of course, they are.
Because I thought the PMF were well-behaved, paid by the government. There are on top of them, or in addition, there are other groups that are not paid by the government, and they are the ones firing these rockets and drones. So all of them are.
To be honest, like I have to be honest, like the PMF is, like there is Popular Mobilization Forces. Some units, they're actually behaving. They are like under the commander, like under the command of the Commander-in-Chief, which is Prime Minister Soudani. But there is units. Like if you believe that there is Iranian-backed militia outside of PMF, you're completely wrong. All of them, they are under the umbrella of PMF. Why? Because of the funding, because of the salaries. And let's be honest, recently, every attack by US on these groups who, according to US, were like targeting them in especially Western Iraq, it was because of they are attacking neighbors and attacking Kurdistan region and US interest. and all of them, they were like units within the PMF.
Yeah.
And so the PMF is it transformed from a military organization into a funding. Like it's like a kind of NGO funding the people to keep running.
And then the issue is that the Iraqi prime minister, the Iraqi president, politicians, basically elected leaders, are not able to control these militia groups because it's obvious, I think, excuse me, these militia groups appoint the ministers and prime ministers in most cases. How can you disarm them if they are more powerful than you?
Exactly. In most cases, Kagayub, in most cases, is that you have the prime minister. Like the prime minister is a very bigger, let's say, process or dialogue that happens between even regional countries to elect a prime minister. But when it comes to the ministers and when it comes to the governors, and especially lately the governor of Babel, Diyala, not Babel, it was a big beef about it, and it was actually the seat won by it was Babel, sorry, not Diyala. It was won by the Qais al-Ghazali, one of his guys. And
in an election or just appointed?
it was an election in the provisional council of Babel, but it was an election that has a lot of question mark on it.
Decided, the results were.
And like this is one example from many. Like we can talk about other ministers, we can talk about like, I don't want to specifically like name people or name their positions, but there's a lot of cases happening like this. In many occasions, I have always said that Iraq is a country that can be very powerful and strong, but the moment that they actually get to know let's say, not dialogue, but accepting each other, that's the problem.
Iraqi groups.
Of course, like you have even within the Shia, they have very different, let's say, different sides, different groups, and they don't like each other, to be honest.
But why are they so united? Because for the last 2-3 decades, many people have predicted or expected some kind of civil war between Iraqi militia groups, and they seem all to be together, and that hasn't happened. Why do you think that is?
I mean, Iran is very powerful in Baghdad. It's quite obvious that. So the coordination framework was actually created according to Iranian policy in Baghdad. Why they did that is to make everyone under one, like to be on one table, and make and that's kind of more of a standing against also the other Shia powerful groups, which is Muqtada Sadr. Because every individual within these groups alone, alone they cannot do anything against Sadr. But when they are together, they can actually, when it comes to the parliament, the number of
Sadr
seats.
is not part of these Iranian-influenced orbit?
I doubt that. I doubt that he's not, to be honest. I doubt, because as I said, back in 2011, post-2011, everybody, the Shia has been very, very much very close to Iran. Sadr is more of a, let's say, neutral when it comes to the Iranians and Americans. But at the same time, Sadr is also not a very kind of...
100% Iraqi.
Of course. Yeah. There is some influences from Tehran on him. You cannot... Because I remember back in 2019, when the protest started in Baghdad, I believe there was a lot of Southern movement happening there. And then at the end, Southern struck a deal, and I remember that very well. He was in Iran. He struck a deal with all the Iranian-backed militia at that time, and he had a photo with them.
Wow.
And he was like, "Oh, we gotta into an agreement with them. So, khalas, go home. No more protest." So this tells you a lot what's happening in Baghdad. And if you think that Baghdad is being some kind of having a control over the individuals, like which they are very close to Iran. No, they don't. Baghdad is very
on the
much,
side.
of course.
And the presence of these powerful, out of control militia groups in Iraq also reflects very well in the sphere of negotiations between Erbil and Baghdad.
Of course.
I
yes.
remember, it's almost like a waste of time. Every time a delegation goes from here, well-organized team with clear agendas, they go to Baghdad, they reach an agreement, they come back, it's violated. It might be these militia groups behind the scene because you negotiate with the Council of Ministers, and as you said, they are powerless.
Yeah.
So it's like you are negotiating with someone who has to later on negotiate their own bosses in order to be able to agree or not.
Yes, that's true, because remember is that Baghdad is a city that it has a lot of Iranian influence. Like why I'm talking always about Iranian influence. I think it's the politics that in Baghdad that actually pushes it to be more into something that preserves what they have created for themselves. For example, the Iranian-backed groups, of course, they have influence on the government, but remember, the government has been formed from these groups, like from even the Iranian influence. Like we're talking about even now, the sole nominated candidate for prime minister is Nouri Maliki. And I don't want to go back to the history, but we all know, like everybody knows that Nouri Maliki has been one of the most closest man of Tehran in Iraq back in even pre-ISIS. I mean, this like his first term and second term. So if we talk about the government is part of these groups as well.
That's
part of
very
the
true.
part of the environment that has been created by Iran post-US withdrawal. So you cannot, I don't think anyone can expect anything, let's say, concrete happening by Baghdad in the close future, in the soon, like in the very coming even years, to be honest, because Baghdad is in a way or another has been, even now they have been, and that's my biggest problem, to be honest. Baghdad has never been into something like, for example, the region, because they have lately they had very good ties, very good, like normalizing the relationship with Gulf. The Iranian-backed militia decided that Iraq should not have any more relation with the Gulf, and you know what happened? Like 2 weeks ago, all the Gulf states, they had one statement, joint statement, because they targeted the Gulf states. I mean, if you're not going to control these Iranian-backed militias, Baghdad is going to be like even weaker, and they, like even negotiation with them is not going to happen. Like,
do you ever go to Baghdad?
A lot, yes.
Really?
Yeah.
I haven't been there for a long time because I saw so many bad things in Baghdad during the sectarian war. A lot of violence, car bombing, kidnapping, mugging. All that. That's my image and memory of Baghdad. And I don't really believe that it has changed. It's calmer, it's peaceful. I think it's just something boiling underneath forever.
So I'm going to be honest. So my birthplace was Baghdad.
Really?
Yeah. So for me, Baghdad is a beautiful city. It's a beautiful, it's a very diverse city. But by the way, a lot of Kurds, they call themselves even, we are Kurds from Baghdad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
at some point there were 1 million Kurds in
exactly.
Baghdad.
So Baghdad used to be very diverse. I'm not cheering for the past regime because it was bloody and everyone knows about it. But Baghdad now is changed in terms of there's like it's more secure, more stable. You see a lot of change in the street. But the only thing that it's not changing is the norms that is in Baghdad. When, like, I mean, to be more specific, it's these groups that you go to everywhere. You go to anywhere in Baghdad and you see some places which is like belongs to these groups, and this is the sad
Is it
part.
visible to a non-Baghdadi, or if someone who lives there feels the presence of these different groups, or if to an outsider it looks normal?
I mean, for an outsider, it looks normal. So you have to be like going to Baghdad a lot to recognize which ones is belongs to which group. But for like, it's unfortunate because Baghdad used to be like, as you said, sectarian violence, a lot of bombings, a lot of terrorism. But I'm gonna be honest, like lately I've been a lot to Baghdad, and it's a beautiful city, and the people are very beautiful. I love it, but it's unfortunate that due to the past experience, a lot of people are having a very, let's say, bad memory in Baghdad. One of them is you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's true. No, Baghdad has that credit of being historical, a lot of art and literature in the
course,
past.
yeah.
And you were saying earlier that different communities in Iraq, unfortunately, instead of using the multiculturalism or diversity to their benefit and their strength, it has only weakened Iraq.
Yeah, I agree. It's just the influence, and also the people that they are running the government and the different sectors like economy, politics, everything. It's just a sad part of Baghdad, to be honest.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the city, I really suggest you to visit Baghdad next time.
The last time I was there was 2019 and
19, yeah.
2009.
Sorry, yeah, okay.
2009, and
Yeah. Oh, that was dark days for Baghdad.
Yeah. 2003, 4, 5,
Yeah.
6. I still went in 2009. But when you say different groups control different areas of Baghdad, in what sense do they control it? The properties, businesses, the streets?
Everything.
Wow.
Yeah, of course. Like you have like, again, I don't want to be more like I don't want to be specific, but there's streets that there's businesses. It's actually taken by a lot of people that they have power, and not only that, we're talking like because lately there's a lot of cases and there's a lot of news about the border crossings. There's men in the government and in power, not in the government but in power. They are powerful. They have shares of the border crossing.
Border crossing, where?
In the south, in south of Iraq.
Border between Iran and Iraq.
Yes, they have shares.
In the customs and revenues.
Of course,
and all.
Yeah.
I think that's true. In Iraq, all the resources, all the resources in Iraq, I think, are divided between different militia groups. One of them controls oil, one real estate, one probably agriculture, mining, if they have any mining. But now with we all saw what happened in the last 40 days, the war between Iran, Israel and the US, the participation of militia groups, bombarding them by the US. What will happen to them now after this ceasefire? Let's imagine there will be a peace deal. The war will stop. What do you think is going to be the future of these groups? Are they going to be more powerful, more dangerous, or they will be put in their place by the Iraqi government, the US and others?
I mean, they are like, they should be part of the peace deal, right? Like if US is trying to, like one of the, like pre-Iran war, there was one of the conditions of US in negotiations, that is the proxy groups that they have, Iran in the region, like Iraq, Yemen, Lebanon. One of them is Iraq, and when it comes to numbers, they have the biggest number, by the way, in Iraq. So I think if they are part of the deal, they have to disarm. They have to be kind of having a solution for them. But if not, I mean, that's gonna be a very big headache for Baghdad, because I have a very different theory for what's coming. What I think is that Iran or US, if they actually reach a permanent deal, and the war stops, without talking or without actually dissolving or finding a solution for the proxies in Iraq, I mean, these proxies is going to be like, they're going to be used. I mean, there is a lot of bombing recently, a lot of airstrikes recently by US on these groups in western of Iraq. I mean, this is a big message. Western Iraq is bordering Syria.
Syria borders Israel. Yeah.
Exactly. And I personally believe Syria right now is a new government, a new phase, everything, but they have a lot of jihadists, Sunni jihadists.
Who are angry at these militia groups?
Not only militia groups, but they are always hungry to do jihad.
Yeah.
Let's say, right? That's
hungry
why
for action.
Of course. And for them, if Syria is a stable thing, there's no jihad, they need to change the theater. So I'm afraid there's some kind of a way that, because by the way, at the end of the day, Syria needs to get rid of these foreign jihadists, which they are ex-ISIS, ex-Al-Qaeda. They are from different countries in West, like in Asia or in Africa. So if Syria is going to have a serious move to actually get rid of these foreign jihadists, it's not going to be on a plane and go back.
But
right?
Are there foreign jihadis still in Syria?
Of course.
And what do they do? Where are they?
But they used to be part of the HTS, which is Hayat Tahrir Sham, and then their leader is now the president of Syria. So they are in different places of Syria, and they are just actually most of them, they are part of the defense ministry now.
How can you have foreign soldiers in your army?
Exactly. So,
unless you open a foreign legion, like the French legion.
So that was the idea that the US and EU even, they had a lot of talks with Syria to get rid of these foreign jihadists. But if you get rid of these foreign jihadists, how are they going to get rid of them?
Where will they go? Because that's always a problem. They moved from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Iraq to Syria.
So I believe something is cooking in the western side of Iraq. I mean, because a lot of airstrikes are on western side of Iraq. And I wrote something for I think 2 or 3 months ago, before the war. It was mainly about the future of these Syrian Sunni jihadists and the future of Iraqi Shia militias. So two groups that they are hating each other. They are actually jihading to kill each other. Both governments, they have nothing to do with them because they are not able to, let's say...
No, both governments come from these militias, which you said, yeah.
Exactly. Both governments are coming from these militias. And at the end of the day, they're like these groups, they are created for a purpose.
I think, if I'm right, you are predicting a war between Syria and Iraq at some point.
You cannot, we cannot name it this way, but I believe because even in my opinion, when US is pushing so hard for the Iranian-backed militias to get disarmed, you cannot do that without having a solution for the jihadis in Syria as well. I mean, it was.
But the argument is that the jihadis in Syria, since they toppled the regime of Assad, they have not harmed anyone. That's what they might say. There is no attack from Syria.
Yes, true.
Because the militias, on the contrary, do attack.
True, but on the long term, this is not going to be like the same case. Because in Iraq, you have these groups. Unfortunately, they are even officially part of the government, let's say.
Yeah.
Because they are part of the PMF, and the PMF is the official state military body. But when it comes to Syria, they are trying to do the same thing. They're trying to have the defense ministry involving everyone, but you cannot have foreign...
Institutionalized.
Of course. But let's be honest, Iraq had foreign jihadists as well, like Fatimiyun and other groups which came from Pakistan, from Afghanistan. we had some. Sorry, but for me, if you want to solve the case of Iraq and Syria, because by the way, both countries, they are like kind of ticking bomb.
Yeah.
Because Iraq is still, Iraq first was post 2003 invasion, like post-war country.
Yeah.
Iraq after ISIS is still a post-war country.
Iraq has always been, since the
Always a
tectonic
post-war-
plates took
exactly.
shape, I think it will always be. I don't know what's
Yeah.
this curse of Iraq. It's like a cycle. Even if you have 10 years of stability and economic boom,
And then you have an event.
5 years
Exactly.
of war and
Exactly.
destruction.
And I think Iraq is, if they don't do something about their internal politics and these groups, they themselves, there will be some kind of aggression against them. Because, but I believe the government is not able to disarm or even solve these groups without the help of the allies, let's say,
Yeah.
which is the US, and because at the end of the US is pushing Baghdad for this.
I think there is a solution for Iraq. It's bad for everyone else, but it's good for Iraq itself, especially economically. If you are not able to disarm these militia groups and dissolve them, Iraq must dissolve its army. I mean, you have an army and a militia group, federal police. So equivalent of every official armed force you have a militia group.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do? Are you going to continue for the next 50 years spending these billions of dollars on the army and the police and anti-terrorism and air force and then all of these militia groups? Why don't you get rid of the army and give all the money to the militia groups, and hopefully in the next 40 years you will be able to reform them?
I mean,
I know it's a
that's a
seriously,
that's an
get
idea.
rid of one of them at least. My biggest problem with Iraq that I always say is that Iraq has spent billions and billions of dollars on arms. We
Yes.
know during Saddam Hussein, after Saddam Hussein, and now. And it loses every war. They are incapable of flying fighter jets. They are incapable of using the radar system, incapable of driving a US tank. And it's all money wasted. Iraq should at some point spend some of its military budget on the country.
I agree.
You have seen Iraq. Have they built any roads in the last 20 years? Built any hospitals? I cannot point to anything. While they are so excited about the latest fighter jet. And you have been losing over and over again.
I mean, if like you talk about southern Iraq, like let's talk about Basra.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about how the money and the state budget is being spent, you go Basra. I have been to Basra many times. Devastating.
Yeah.
And it's the richest city, if it's not in the world, at least in the Middle East, let's say, because it has a lot of oil.
And it's Iraq's gateway.
Exactly. And it's 80 to 85% of Iraq oil is coming from Basra. While the city, they don't even have a clean water to drink.
The government does not spend money on these, or they spend it, but it gets stolen and swindled.
Both cases is right. I mean, in a lot of cases, you see that the money has been spent in a wrong way, or it's there's a lot of corruption when it comes to the spending. But Basra is the prime example of how Iraq has been developing, because it's very unfortunate. I have been to Basra, amazing people. You go there.
Good fish.
Good, very good fish. I was about to talk about the fish. I mean, but when it comes to the roads, as you said, hospitals, it's devastating.
But isn't that the job? I often see people complaining against the government everywhere, in Iraq, in the Kurdistan region, the government, this and that. But then I often blame governors, local officials, the Iraqi prime minister or our own prime minister in the Kurdistan region would be very happy and proud if the governor of Halabja or Duhok or Erbil stands out for some creativity, for groundbreaking plans and construction and changes.
No.
I mean, we can't just sit and blame the government. Whereas in Iraq and the Kurdistan region, we have this system of autonomy to the governors. Sometimes we need brave, visionary local leaders to make the change.
I agree. But the problem is, when you spend so much money on your, as you said, on trying to building groups, working for other countries, trying to, I mean, the last 40 days, there was a lot of aids and support by the Iraqis going into Iran for Iranian people, which is the humanitarian, like humanity in the, let's say, the aspect of humanity, that's amazing. But in the aspect of Iraq is not having, like a lot of people in Iraq, by the way, because mostly the things that coming to Baghdad and the south was Iranians, to be honest. And when they stopped, why you reversing and you take it? So as I agree with you, with local officials should step up and do something about it, but they are limited as well. Let's be honest. Like when it comes to the southern provinces, like cities, the governor, yes, he can do something, but he's also very restricted by the groups.
He has to bow to the bosses.
Of course. Like, and by the way, when you go to Basra, when you go to Nasiriyah, when you go to Anbar, everywhere, you have groups who has shares in everything. Like you're talking about land, you're talking about border crossing, you're talking about
even the
agriculture,
shrines.
everything. Shrines, it belongs to every and each of them. So they are also restricted in terms of how they can do. Like if we take Kurdistan as a prime example, is that the prime minister and the governor, they both have nothing to be pressured on. That's why they do it. But when it comes to Baghdad and South, no, you have, let's call them sharks. You have 12 to 15 sharks that if you make one move, they're gonna attack you. So,
or they each want a piece of the cake.
of course. So what is the easiest way to deal with that? You just sit down, you just sign whatever they want, you're happy. And that's the core problem of Iraq. And by the way, this is not, I'm not talking about the governors only when it comes to that. I'm talking about the whole government. Because if we talk about ministers, they have the same pressure on them. Prime minister is the same pressure on him. Like Mohammed Shah Sudani, lately, there was an attack on the Iraqi intelligence services in Baghdad. And one officer killed. And it was conducted by the groups. So in return, there was some kind of by the way, I read it in multiple group like channels on Telegram, which affiliated to these Iranian-backed groups. They were making fun of Prime Minister Sudani, and they were like actually kind of promising him with a very, very harsh response if he make a move
against them.
Of course. And eventually he didn't make a move.
Which he can't,
He didn't make a move. So that tells you a lot about the Iraqi government. And at the beginning, you remember that I told you, Iraqi government is not weak. It's absent, completely absent. Like you had 40 days of war. 40 days, these groups have been attacking Kurdistan, have been attacking Jordan, Gulf. And you absolutely did nothing.
No, exactly. Iraqi government is so useless. Apart from all these groups operating in Iraq, attacking all of Iraq's neighbors, including the Kurdistan region, apart from all those, even Israel and the United States and others, they did not ask Iraq, they did not consult Iraq as if it did not exist. I mean, how shameful that is for a country that becomes the playground of a million different groups and fighters and fighter jets, and you coming on TV and speaking of sovereignty. That's Iraq's problem. They always speak of sovereignty, and one country that has zero sovereignty is Iraq.
Unfortunately, it is true, and even before the war.
Yes, exactly.
I can count you multiple countries that they are actually violating the sovereignty of Iraq. It comes to Iran, Turkey, Syria, Kuwait, US, Israel. When does the sovereignty of Iraq has ever been respected?
Especially since 2003.
Exactly. So that's my problem with that, is because you have, every time you talk about the sovereignty, but the sovereignty is always been like broken or actually violated by these groups,
Yeah.
that you actually funding them.
That's a good argument. If Iraq is worried about its sovereignty being violated, first of all, control these groups, because no one else has violated Iraq's sovereignty more than these armed militia groups. If you cannot control your own internal politics, armed groups, how would you expect the US or Israel to not violate your sovereignty?
Exactly. And a lot of people argue that just dissolve or disarm the Iranian-backed groups and your sovereignty is going to... No, that's not true.
So you mean dissolving Iranian-backed groups in Iraq will not solve the problem of Iraq?
Of course, definitely not solve the problem. I will let you know, I will tell you why I think this way. It's because Iran, since 2003 and today, until today, and even in the future, if the regime stays, they will never let a prominent, strong individual to become the leader of the country.
Because they have trauma from
Of course.
a strong Iraq. Even if this man is from their own, they will not want one man.
Yeah, of course. Look at what Abbadi did, Haider Abbadi. Back in the days, he was the prime minister and he was actually the prime minister when ISIS attacked Iraq. What he did, he actually did it. He liberated Mosul. The problem with Abbadi is that he lost his support locally after what happened. Like he attacked Kirkuk, the Kurds, and that was the locally. The Kurds are very powerful when it comes to forming the government of the Iraqis.
Yeah.
And by the way, until today, there's no any movement, like let's say any development when it comes to the Iraqi government formation, because you either going to give the rights of the Kurds or they can actually makes you stop.
Create trouble.
Right, exactly. So when it comes to Iran, Iran will never let this happen because a strong Iraq will be a very threat, a big threat for Iran. I'm not talking about pre-2003. I'm talking about if Iran loses Iraq, they will lose because they lost Syria, but it's a potential to get it back for in their head, let's say, for Iran. If they lose Iraq, they would lose Syria and Lebanon.
Yeah.
So if they lose these three countries, they will definitely be their regional, let's say, power, their regional proxies, they will be dead. So why a strong, powerful individual will never become the prime minister? Because he will be very powerful that he can actually disarm these groups.
Yeah, exactly.
With violence. But I don't think Iran will let this happen. And this takes us back to what you said at the beginning, is that why there's no local governors or local, let's say,
leaders,
official that can make a change, because they can't. Because Iran wants everyone who is now powerful to be in somewhere. And when I said Haider Abbadi, is that Iran did not let this happen. Because
what do you think now is going to be the place of the Kurdistan region now? Let's assume this ceasefire is going to continue or last long. And we saw what happened. The Kurdistan region was not dragged into the war. It came under attack. It held together still. How do you read the next few months for the Kurdistan region? I cannot say years, because in the Middle East, things change quickly.
Yeah, I agree. So for Kurds, for now, the biggest debate about it's the Iraqi presidency. If this is solved, the Kurds needs to, by the way, for the last 10 years or so, let's say, the Kurds have been very, very critical when it comes to peace process. We're talking about the peace process in Turkey between Ankara and PKK. We're talking about the peace process in Syria between Ahmad al-Shara, the president, and the Kurds. And we're talking about the peace process that is going to happen, maybe. Nobody knows. Maybe it happens between the Iranian regime and the Kurds there. Like we're talking about that.
So that's a good point. Let's talk about that. Let's skip the Kurdistan region.
Yeah.
What will be the position of the Iranian Kurdish groups after this war? We know they did not join the war. Some say they will. today and yesterday, some
True.
articles in the
True.
New York Times and others that they are yearning. The New York Times says Iranian Kurds are yearning to join this war. Do you think the Iranian regime, this one or the future, will be wise enough to say, okay, we had a near-death experience, let's go and talk to the Kurds and give them some rights and get rid of this lasting threat, basically? Or do you think they will continue forever to deny Kurdish rights and Kurdish existence?
I mean, the Iranian opposition groups, the Kurdish Iranian opposition groups, it will be good for them to make some kind of negotiation with Tehran and get their rights. I completely agree with that. But there's a big problem here, is that Turkey is not going to let this happen. You remember back in the first days of the war, Donald Trump, the president of the US, he was like, oh, I want the Kurds to make a move. I remember for the same day, in the evening, there was a call between the foreign minister of Turkey with the secretary of state of US, which is the Mark Rubio. And basically, after that, the view completely changed. It was like, oh, the Kurds, no, don't do anything. Because, Kagayub, there's a big threat that on Ankara, because Turkey doesn't want the Kurds to actually be fully on its borders, let's say Syria, Iraq, and Iran. So I don't think Turkey is going to let this happen, unless, because Turkey lately has have a different approach, which is, in my opinion, very wise, is that they don't use military against the Kurds. Let's go back to the peace process when it started with the PKK. They might do the same thing in Iran. They might actually push Tehran to make the Kurds in the agenda between US and Tehran to make some kind of giving the rights to the Kurds.
Some concessions.
Because they did the same to Kurds in Syria. They actually, it was US and Turkey that made sure that the Kurds, like Turkey was more into Damascus taking back the control, and US was protecting the Kurds. But Turkey could have, let's say, actually made a very wide-scale operation against the Kurds, but they didn't. So this is a very good message. In my opinion, if Iran does a step similar to that, it will be good for them. If not, I believe anywhere there's Kurds, there's always chaos. The Kurds are not, like throughout the history, they are not someone that they sit down and they be like, okay, just give me my share and that's it. No, they are very aggressive. They are very keen to get their rights.
But Turkey is often driven by business.
Of course.
The current leaders of Turkey especially come from companies and businesses. Before that, it was the army. Mm-hmm. Have they not realized that the Kurdistan region is a good example? The Kurdistan region exists as a federal region of Iraq with its own capital, parliament, flag. Business-wise, it's booming, and its best business partner is Turkey.
Yeah.
Have they not learned, Turkish leaders, that if Kurds of Iran, the Kurds of Syria, and other areas do exist and are successful and are booming, it's good for everyone? Why would they have problems with Iranian Kurds gaining anything?
Very good point. To be honest, when it comes to business and economy, the biggest trader now with Kurdistan is Turkey, and it's amazing. But when it comes to, like, we're talking about geopolitics, when it comes to Turkey, Turkey is afraid of the Kurds to do something within Turkey.
Start with federalism and then,
of course,
do something
so
else.
when you have Kurds having autonomous regions on its border, that's definitely going to affect the Kurds in Turkey. So by preventing this happen, by the way, Turkey was very much against today's Kurdistan region, like the federalism in Iraq. They were like the biggest critic against, and there was like the biggest oppositions of this idea. Why this happened? It was because of there was a plan by the Kurds, and there was a fight in Baghdad. And that's always, like during the crisis in Syria, that the Iraqi state army, they started to attacking Kurds, and there was a pause, I remember, for 4 or 5 days. At that time, I wrote something on my profile on X is that the best outcome for Kurds now is to not, because they were like going, like talking to US, Baghdad, like let's say, like a lot of different capital. You're wrong. The only capital that you can get your rights in Syria is Damascus.
Yeah.
Same when it comes to,
Right.
unfortunately, when it comes to Iraq. Why? It's because Kurdistan region right now, they have like almost everything independent. But the only thing is not independent is first is the diplomacy and foreign relations. Second is right now is the salaries of the
Budget,
public servants, the budget. When you need to fight for your rights, you need to fight it in the capital. Same for the Kurds in different cities.
That's true, because you are dealing with the capital. Iranian Kurds, in this case, their problem is with Tehran. But then, as they say, it takes two to tango. If the Iranian Kurds are willing to negotiate, willing to make concessions, willing to draw a map as to what they want, you need this to be reciprocated from the other side.
Sure. I mean, as you said, it's that if you want to get your rights, you need to work within yourself and to go to the capitals. Now in Syria, I mean, like, it's going well, but it's I don't want to be pessimistic here, but it's the changes that's going to happen in Syria. That's very, because there's some things that I always predict, but I don't never say it. Because
Tell us
sometimes
some of those predictions.
No, because predictions I'm much against it. But sometimes when you analyze the region, and when you go back to, because history is very important. If you want to analyze somewhere, you need to know the history of this place.
True.
You analyze something and you predict something because the prediction is part of the analysis.
Yeah.
But I never talk about the prediction. And right now, when I talked about Iraq and Syria and the border, I don't want to say what's going to happen, what I predict, but I want to say that what happened in the 40 days of US in Iraq, against, especially on the border in the Western, is not only just randomly this happening. No, this is very strategic why this is being cleaned. Same goes to Syria. Syria is full of foreign jihadists, as I said, and you need a solution for that. I don't want to go back to this. But when it comes to prediction, is that, I mean, when Trump is the president, you never be able to predict anything going to happen. So that's one thing. Second, it's the local politics of Iraq is very complicated when it comes to, let's say, Baghdad. Noor al-Maliki is going to be the prime minister, or he's going to actually remove his candidacy or withdraw from the race. Nobody knows. But what is very, very much is sure about is that US is not going to be easy on Iraq post-Tehran deal or Tehran, whatever it is going to happen.
I think so. I mean, the US spent billions and trillions of dollars in Iraq, and Trump often says that. He said, we spent so much money and investment and the loss of life of their soldiers, and they did not benefit from Iraq. I mean, if they are going to be harsh on Iraq, who would blame them?
You know, Trump has a tweet on 2011. And that, like the other day, I found it somehow. He says, a big mistake by Obama that he leaves Iraq. Why not taking the oil?
Wow.
So this sums up the Trump politics that's happening.
Yeah.
For me, the biggest mistakes and the biggest wrong policies that happened in Middle East, it was during Obama. Starting from Arab Spring, which it was disaster, to be honest.
Yeah.
Going into Syria, because Syria had started with the Arab Spring, and then Syria was some kind of how Obama actually gave, like it was handed over to Russia.
Yeah.
And the chemical weapons and stuff. And so I don't want to go back to this, but why I'm talking about the mistakes is that Trump now, I believe, is doing even worse mistakes than what Obama was doing.
Oh.
Of course, because I want to talk about the Iran war a bit, because what has been achieved by Iran war? That's the outcome. Okay, every war has an outcome. Every war has a result. I mean, what are the achievements? Okay, you actually changed the regime or the faces, let's say, but what are the changes? What are the, like, on the first day, Trump said, we're going to change the regime. No, you didn't change the regime. Second, you said we're going to, I mean, different things like
Unconditional surrender.
unconditional surrender, uranium enrichment, missiles capabilities. They have missiles capabilities.
Yeah.
Uranium enrichment, they have the capability to do it, and they are not surrendering.
Control of Hormuz, they still have it.
Exactly. So, so you didn't achieve anything. So you started the war while you now, and there was an article by Financial Times yesterday. It was like the idea of the ceasefire came from the Donald Trump team itself, and that says a lot of what's happening, because Iranians, and I told you at the beginning, I was very impressed how they actually dealt with that for 40 days. Is that one strait, which is Strait of Hormuz, it was enough to put pressure on US to stop this war. And why they did that? Because Strait of Hormuz is just a Strait of Hormuz, like, let's say 20% of oil and trade is going through this strait. But the economic pressure that actually resulted from closure of Strait of Hormuz, that was the biggest boom, because the missile capability is not going to reach Europe. It's not going to reach US. Sorry, they don't have a nuclear weapon to strike anywhere, but they have the Strait of Hormuz that someone in London or in New York or in Russia, in Moscow, or in Beijing, like in China, or in Africa, they all got the hit.
Yeah, it affects everyone.
Exactly. So, I mean, in my opinion, the policies so far is not, like, in my opinion, the Iran war is not achieving anything. And
But do you think the war is over?
No, absolutely not. Actually, the other day I wrote that. I was like, there's a ceasefire, but we cannot say, oh, the past war, oh, we talk about the war in the past tense. No.
Yeah, because already people talk about, even us here, as we should remember, it's a ceasefire. And last year we had a 12-day war, a 6 months break.
True.
It continued. It might continue again.
True.
That's why it might not be easy to assess the outcome of the war.
And I don't think it's gonna, even if there's a longer ceasefire, I don't think Israel will let this happen. You saw what had happened in Lebanon. That's kind of, in my opinion, that was a provoking Tehran to make a mistake. So the war starts again. I mean, in all this, this has nothing to do with, like, Iraq. It has nothing to do with the Gulf, but somehow everybody is kind of in the war.
Yeah.
Like, for example, like for the past 40 days, me and you and everybody else in Erbil, it is very, very much like a war.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
we see
booms.
it.
I used to wake up with a big boom in the morning, and I used to be struggling with my sleeps in the night because of the booming. At the end of the day, if there is a ceasefire, yes, there will be a longer ceasefire, maybe, and then maybe there's a deal, but the war is not going to be over. And I used to say, I feel like Iran is kind of not similarly, but going through the same era of the 1990s of Iraq. You remember that back in 1990 and 1991, there was a lot of airstrikes by US. So,
yeah, someone else, an Iraqi politician, made the same comparison.
yeah.
An Iraqi politician actually made the same comparison, that Iran now is like the post-Kuwait war of Iraq.
Yeah,
Weakened,
I agree.
infrastructure hit, the army defeated,
Exactly.
weakened, but he said everything still stayed in place. The
Exactly.
regime,
Yeah.
Saddam Hussein.
It's the same thing. And I don't think, by the way, in this war, everybody forgets that Israel was in this war as well.
Yeah.
They have their own agenda. They have their own list.
Yeah.
US was more into the oil in the war. Israel is more into the war to actually
Security.
exactly security and stability and missile capability, because there's no threat by Iran on US when it comes to the missiles capabilities, but there's threats on Israel.
But let's say, why do you think you said the war is Iraq and the Gulf states didn't have anything to do with this war, but for the reality of the region, everyone was involved one way or another,
Of course.
as an attacker or as a victim. Most were victims. The
Yes.
Kurdistan region, Kuwait, UAE, and others. Why do you think these militia groups were attacking the Kurdistan region? It's one question that from leadership, from top down, has been asked. Why do you attack the Kurdistan region? And they said there are US bases here, but most of the drones and rockets fell on civilian homes, on peaceful Peshmergas.
I mean, when it comes to the attacks by these groups, it was, yes, they claim that it was against US bases. And there is the drones that US bases were actually intercepting, and it was falling on civilians. But let's focus on the Iranian-backed groups, how they work. You need to know the structure. Like, there's a lot of groups that they are actually doing these things without any, let's say, knowledge, because it's not, they just do it for the message.
But if they are controlled by Iran, don't you think they have been told also by Iran to fire their rockets? Or you think a militia leader in Baquba or Mosul just suddenly
No, of course.
woke up and decided to fire some rockets?
Definitely it's an agenda that's coming from Tehran.
Being commanded.
Of course. This is like, even in many occasions, there were statements, there was like orders from Tehran, like even televised. You're saying the proxies, you're doing a great job, thanking the proxy wars that's happening in the region. For these groups, the easiest one to target is Kurdistan region. Why? It's because Kurdistan region, they think somehow it's part of Iraq. Baghdad is not going to do anything. There will not be a lot of pressure, because at the end of the day, they think that it's Kurds. Unfortunately, because once they target the Gulf states, this is a diplomatic crisis.
Yeah.
But once they attack Kurdistan region and they claim that it's against the US bases and interest, it doesn't matter for them if it's against US interest or it's against civilians, because let us remember that how many casualties they had when it comes to US and Kurdistan region? 0. How many civilians they had? 2, yes. How many security forces of Kurdistan region? That was the biggest one.
Yeah.
The maximum was like up to, I believe, 8 or 9. So the result, it shows you why they are targeting.
So you mean the militia groups are attacked the Kurdistan region just to show that they are
Doing
active,
something. Exactly.
They are part of the war, they are doing something, paid their dues.
Of course, that's first thing. Second, they believe that if they attack Kurdistan region, there will not be a big diplomatic crisis, because it's between...
No repercussions, basically, from Baghdad.
Exactly. Baghdad is not doing anything about it. And by the way, they did a lot of attacks against Gulf, Jordan, and still nothing from Baghdad. But when it comes to the Kurdistan region, they were like... Because at the end of the day, the Kurdistan region never even fired a bullet against Iraq. That's like back, this is since 2003. Like, I remember, like, I wrote something about that, is that back in, if you remember, post-referendum, there was an attack by Hajj al-Shabi and Iraqi forces against the disparate territories and the Peshmerga. At that time, I wrote that the firing a bullet, it never came from the Kurdistan region. It never came from this side to the south. It was always...
It has always been the case. Yeah.
So if you think about why they are doing this, there's a lot of reasons. Like, they claim that it's US. I don't think it's US. I think it's just... Because if it's US, why before that you were targeting core more, like the infrastructure, the oil and gas and electricity infrastructure in Kurdistan region. So these groups that they have a lot of agenda, let's be honest, economically, politically, security-wise, ideologically. So if you think that these groups are very, let's say, careful with their target, if it has to be US, no, they don't. They don't care. And this is the main problem, because Iran is pushing them to do it, but there's no intelligence Iran with them to say, oh, this is the...
Are you sure? Because the thing is that there are officers, intelligence officers with them on the ground.
No, that's absolutely no. Because I don't think Iran is kind of in a war with the US and comes to Kirkuk or Mosul to be with these groups to fire a drone that is... And by the way, the drones they are very small and they build it themselves. So I don't think Iran was kind of in every... Yes, the general like operation, it was commanding by Iran, but day to day, no. It was just these groups and without any proper technology. They just...
to create mayhem,
of course, to create chaos and showing that, oh, Iraq is doing something for Iran.
Do you think that we all wonder what will happen next between Erbil and Baghdad after waking up from this dream of war against Iran? Yeah. I'm sure the Kurds had their own calculations and hopes or wishes, the same with the Iraqis. Do you think anything is going to change? Will Erbil and Baghdad get closer to each other, or there will be more mistrust?
I think I hope they get closer and do something. By the way, I am always with the governments of both Erbil and Baghdad. They actually get closer to each other.
Yeah,
that's the problem that created post-ISIS or pre-ISIS, whatever you call it. The problem was that there is not miscommunication, but there is a lot of different actors that pushing Baghdad to have a reaction to Erbil. This is the problem, that Erbil and Baghdad, they need to be closer to each other. If there's much closer to each other, trust me, there will be a lot of things different from now, what have we now doing now. By the way, if we go back to 2003, 2004, before 5, the leadership council that was created by US, it was like Kurds, Sunnis, and Shia. I think that was the best era for Iraq since 2003.
Yeah.
Before the sectarian violence, I mean. It was the Kurds, the Sunnis, the Shia, they were like on the same table doing something. Right now, you see Sunnis against Sunnis,
yeah,
Kurds against Kurds, Shia against Shia, and then vice versa as well. Kurds against Shia, Shia against... So you have 3 companies, 3 ethnicities.
3 divided components.
Exactly. They are actually living together, but they will never be able to be on the same table. Because why? It's because of the ideology. And back in the days, back in the previous century, which is I'm going back to Sykes Biko. I'm going back to history a lot because it's what we live now. It's because of what happened in the history.
Yeah. I
mean, there's a quote by one of the journalists, that a good friend of mine. He says that Middle East feels like a puzzle, but every piece of the puzzle is not sticking, is not fitting the puzzle itself.
Yeah.
You talk about Syria. If we go back to the history of Syria, it's always been Jews against Alawis, Alawis against Sunnis, Sunnis against Kurds. Same goes to Iraq. But look at the Gulf. UAE, Saudis, yes, they have Shia, there's some kind of problems, but look at the Gulf. They don't have any problems.
So in their case, this being not being as multicultural is good. It has helped the Gulf states. They
mean,
are
it
not
has.
as
I mean,
diverse as Iraq
Yes.
or Syria.
I mean, look at UAE.
Yeah,
The best. We both agree is one of the top 5
yeah.
countries when it comes to economy, everything, security.
Efficiency.
It's number one in security, I believe, because I have been to Dubai and I have been in many occasions on the streets. I'll be like, wow. And to be honest, is the same thing in different locations. I have always said Erbil, because I lived in London for a long time, Erbil is more secure than London. When I say that, no, how you say that? Because I have been in the streets, leaving my car without any proper, like, and there's cash in my car, like in some occasion. I haven't locked it. I went inside to get my coffee, came back, nothing happened. Like, when it comes to London, trust me, one wrong direction by the GPS and you go into a dark neighborhood, you're done.
Yeah.
So if we go back to Gulf, you see the Gulf, like UAE, perfect. Why? Because it's one company and there's not a problem. Syria, Iraq, always, Lebanon, like you have this kind of diversification, which is rich, which is beautiful, very beautiful.
But it has
it's not
backfired
working
against us.
Yeah, it's not working. It's like, I know a lot of people are saying the diversification coexists. Yes, I agree, it's beautiful. But let's sit down and face the reality. It's not working in Iraq. You cannot. Like, it has always been US pushing the Kurds, going to talk to Shia, Iranians pushing Kurds or pushing the Shia, going to talk to Kurds. Stop.
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
Right?
Iraq should break up into 3 countries, which is an old idea, but that's the solution. If you cannot live together, Shias, Kurds, and Sunnis, we could say and shout for all we are worth on TV, in the media, that we are brothers, we are diverse, multicultural, but on the ground, it hasn't worked. So if the Kurds have their own state, which is Biden's solution during the sectarian war, a 3-state solution, I think that's the solution. But the biggest fear in the mind of every Iraqi, even if they live in hell, if Iraqis live in hell and say, okay, if we divide this country, each part will turn into a paradise, they will still prefer to live in a united hell than a divided paradise. That's the problem.
I mean, Kage, let's shift ourselves. Let's go into the shoes of the Arabs, like the people in Baghdad. I would have thinking the same. I would have said, Iraq, this is my country.
No, you wouldn't have said the same. You would have sat down with yourself and being practical and realistic.
I mean, like an ordinary person.
If you put
exactly.
an
ordinary person. Not like for myself. If I'm like this, if I'm an Arab, a Kurd, a Christian, a Muslim, whatever ethnicity, religion, I still believe when something is not working for the past 100 years, change it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that the country, like, because we might have different, like, let's say, different approach to this. But I don't think it's working. Like, I don't think even in the future for Syria is not working. I mean,
the current situation or the division?
I mean, the current situation is. Yeah. I mean, hopefully it works. Hopefully that both Iraq will go into a place that is going to be very, like, as you said, paradise for everyone.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we need to be realistic. I have always said that, like, even, I don't want to shift the topic away, but from this, but even like the problem in Iraq is that a lot of people, they have hopes for something, but in reality, we both know that this hope is kind of baseless. It's kind of dead.
Yeah.
I don't want to be pessimistic. Like, I have a lot of, let's say, trust that Iraq will slowly do something when it comes to security, economy, socially, the most important part. But with the current, let's say, agenda, the current individuals in power, no, you cannot.
Yeah, no, and Iraq itself has never had a break and does not give itself a break of, let's say, 50 years without war in order to build something. That's the problem. In Iraq, the Iraqi leaders should be more loyal to the country. Someone should come along and say for the next 50 years there will be no war, no alliances, no militia group. Only if you have a break. That's my worry for the Kurdistan region. We had the civil war in the 90s and the war with ISIS. They were small, short-lived, but since any progress we have had, social progress, economic progress, anything, it's because we have had a break from wars.
I agree.
But it seems that Iraq and Iraqi leaders even go to the poorest man on the street. He wants the country to buy a nuclear weapon tomorrow and drop it on someone else. Should stop and say, okay, let's spend the money on our own children.
I mean, like, this takes us to education. Unfortunately, the education, like, even past, like, post 2003. I mean, what do you have been built, as you said? Roads, schools, hospitals. Unfortunately, nothing to be, like, mentioned here between us. You have a generation now, like, because I have a lot of friends in Baghdad, very smart. They are working for different places, companies in the government, amazing. But you have a lot of people who are, like, armed within the groups. If you can imagine an Iraq without problems, you need to think about this person should not be dead. He should be educated like this person who is in the company or government. The main problem we have in Iraq is that, as you said, everybody is so ready to fight. And the other person who is in front of him, he's also ready to fight. There's no one who takes a break. There's no one sits down, says, you know what, we're not gonna actually go to this. We're not gonna be part of this. Let's sit down. Let's have a moment of peace. Because you didn't educate peace to these people in the big, like, post 2003. These young people, they are armed now, fighting every day. They are sending rockets to 3-4 different countries around Iraq, including within it, because there's no education. There's this kind of ideology that came to him, like, to his mind, and been educating him since then is the shrines, is the Iranian influence. What you have been doing to counter that? Even today, nothing. Your education is not actually helping these people. While you see a lot of Iraqis back in pre-2003, they are now in different countries around the world. Maybe I have friends the same, you have friends the same. They are very successful, very smart. Why? Because of the education. And by the way, a lot of them, they are not educated in Iraq. They are educated in Europe and
they are in the right environment.
So I completely agree with that. I also, like, I don't know why individual in Iraq is always very ready to fight. Like, they go always extreme. Like, even in wars, they go extreme. I mean,
Iraq,
I mean, you remember the ISIS war? Like, I think it was, videos were coming out. I mean, it was disturbing to maximum disturbing for me, because the Shia against the Sunni. Why you go extreme? So I agree. It's unfortunate. I mean, at the end, I mean, I really hope that Erbil and Baghdad can together fix this. Because if Baghdad thinks that they can fix something without Erbil, trust me, you cannot. And same goes to Erbil. If you want to fix something without Baghdad, trust me, you cannot. You have to sit down together and do it without any influence from outside.
Very good advice. Very good place to also end this very enjoyable conversation.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for coming and educating us on these things.
No, sorry. I'm not educating. I'm just trying. It was a very good chat, to be honest. And I enjoyed it. And I think as we have conversation in front of the people, and I think we can also have conversation in the next few weeks or months, because a lot of is going to happen.
Yeah.
It was my pleasure.